Jonathan Hale, a reclusive deaf millionaire known across the city for his quiet generosity, always dined alone in the same corner of his towering glass penthouse. The world admired his empire but never understood the loneliness that wrapped around him like a shadow. Every evening he would sit at the long marble table, lit only by a warm golden lamp, reading lips of the waitstaff as they politely tried to interact with him. He preferred silence because it was the only world he knew, yet even silence felt heavy these days. Jonathan had lost his parents young, grown up in institutions, and learned early how to build a fortress around his heart. But deep inside him lingered a quiet ache he never admitted, the desire for connection, something stronger than the polished metal and glass that filled his life. Downstairs in the same building, a single mother named Maria worked as the night cleaning lady. She was gentle, soft-spoken, and always smiling despite the long hours. Her baby, Leo, barely a year old, often stayed with her quietly in a stroller because she couldn't afford childcare. The staff adored the child, who stared at everything with curious, bright eyes as if the world were full of magic. Maria made sure he never disturbed anyone, especially not Mr. Hale, whose floor she cleaned after he finished dinner. She had heard stories of his brilliance, his silence, his solitude, and though she had never spoken to him, she felt a strange empathy for him. She worked quietly, never imagining their paths would cross in a way that would change all three lives forever. One evening, Jonathan finished dinner earlier than usual. The staff had left the floor, assuming he had gone to his study. But instead he wandered into the lobby of his private suite, lost in thought, unable to shake the feeling that something was missing from his life. That was when he noticed Maria pushing her cart, her baby asleep in the small stroller. He watched her from a distance, unnoticed. Her movements were careful, almost graceful, and he admired how she paused every few minutes to check on her son with such tenderness. He couldn't hear the soft lullaby she hummed, but he could see it in her lips and the gentle sway of her body. Something in him stirred, a feeling he hadn't felt in years, curiosity, and something softer he didn't yet recognize. Maria finally noticed him and froze, mortified. She worried he would be angry that she had brought her baby to this private floor. She bowed slightly and tried to apologize, but Jonathan, unable to hear her voice, simply raised a hand in reassurance. He read her lips as she explained timidly why her baby was with her. Instead of irritation, he felt a warm sympathy he wasn't expecting. He signed slowly, awkwardly, trying to say it was fine. She didn't understand the signs, but she understood the kindness in his eyes. For a brief moment their worlds touched, hers full of struggle, his full of silence, and neither knew that this small exchange was just the beginning. The next night, Maria returned, this time more cautious. She tried to keep Leo farther away from the dining area and cleaned as quietly as possible. But Leo, now more awake and curious, spotted Jonathan eating alone. The baby stared at the lonely man, waving tiny hands and babbling softly. Jonathan looked up, surprised, then amused. He couldn't hear the sounds, but he could see the joy, the openness, the unfiltered innocence. Leo giggled and stretched both arms toward him, as if insisting the millionaire join his tiny world. Jonathan felt something melt inside him, something he had buried under years of isolation. Before Maria could stop him, Leo did the unthinkable. He crawled right out of the stroller, toddled across the polished floor, and pulled himself up by Jonathan's chair. The baby placed his small hand on Jonathan's knee and smiled at him as if they'd known each other forever. Jonathan froze, overwhelmed. No adult had dared to breach his solitude in years, yet this little child had crossed the invisible walls effortlessly. Slowly, Jonathan bent forward, meeting Leo's eyes at level, and for the first time in so long, he felt seen, truly seen, without judgment or pity. Maria rushed over, apologizing desperately, but Jonathan gently shook his head and signed, "It's okay." Leo, fascinated by Jonathan's hands, began copying the movements with adorable clumsiness. Jonathan laughed silently, a laugh felt more than heard. He began signing simple gestures for, "Hello, friend," and, "Thank you," and to his astonishment, the baby mirrored him with surprising accuracy. Maria watched in awe, tears welling in her eyes, realizing her son had made a connection she never could have imagined. She apologized again, but Jonathan waved it off and motioned for her to sit. He typed a short message on his tablet for her to read, "Your son is remarkable." Maria's heart swelled at the kindness she rarely received. Each night after that, Jonathan found himself finishing dinner earlier, eager for the few moments when Leo would be nearby. What began as accidental visits turned into quiet, meaningful routines. Maria would clean while Jonathan entertained Leo with gentle signs and silent games. Over time Maria began learning sign language through free online videos so she could finally communicate more naturally with him. The more they interacted, the more Jonathan opened up, sharing pieces of his silent world, letting light into the rooms of his heart that had been closed for decades. The millionaire who once dined alone now found companionship in the simplest form, a baby's laugh, a mother's gratitude, a new language of connection. One evening, after Leo had fallen asleep in Jonathan's arms, Maria confessed through trembling signs and written notes how hard her life had been, how she felt she was failing as a mother because she couldn't give Leo more. Jonathan looked at her, feeling a depth of respect he had never felt for anyone. He gently typed a message, "You give him love. That is more than anything money can buy." Tears streamed down Maria's face. For the first time, she felt seen not as a cleaner, not as a struggling mother, but as someone worthy of admiration. Jonathan held Leo closer, realizing the baby had done something no one else had managed. He had broken through the millionaire's lifelong solitude. A few weeks later, Jonathan invited Maria and Leo to dine with him at the large marble table where he had once eaten alone. With the soft lights glowing and the city shimmering below, the three of them sat together, not as employer and employee, not as millionaire and cleaning lady, but as three lives unexpectedly woven together. Jonathan signed a simple phrase to Leo, who giggled and attempted to sign back, "Family." Maria covered her mouth, overwhelmed, but Jonathan simply smiled. The man who had once believed silence was his destiny had discovered something far more powerful, that even in the quietest lives, love can arrive without warning, carried in the tiny hands of a child brave enough to do the unthinkable.